So the other day, I had a pretty cool idea. I figured I'd put 60 minutes on the clock and give it a shot. I wanted to take all of the articles and bookmarks I've ever made, at least in the past 10 years, there's over 3,000 of them. I wanted the robot to read all of my bookmarks and make a huge knowledge graph of all the, connections between all of the entities and everything I've ever read, right? So if it's a news article, um, the Supreme Court might be an entity, Congress might be an entity, Coke might be an empty entity, Apple might be an entity, and they all have different relationships between them, and those relationships kind of grow over time, or you learn more about different connections in different articles, and they're never really explicitly stated necessarily. So I was curious to go back through all of my bookmarks, and I built a little scraper that extracts out relationships from the text of a written article. And then what we need to do is make a huge database of nodes and edges, right? The entities and connections between them. And so that's what I'm doing here in Supabase is I'm, you know, binding little threads between all of my bookmarks and my connections. And the reason I want to do this is I want to, as I am talking to more robots, Claude and ChatGPT, I keep wanting to give them my understanding of the world, and a lot of that is kept in this kind of network graph of who influences who is associated with who, like what movements and philosophies and schools of thought different people come from. And that's not always explicitly stated in the text you're reading. It's kind of part of critical thinking, right? As you hear about hear new information or read information from a source, you kind of got to keep in your mind what their worldview is. And so this is an attempt at kind of capturing that in data in a way that I can convey to LLMs really quickly. So I have a huge table now of all the nodes and edges found in all my bookmarks, and I really want to see them. So I'm going to use another tool I've created called Connectology, which is a D3 network viewing tool. It did not yet have a CSV import, so I had to build one real quick. But once I got that working, I was able to export my Supabase table and see it as a big network in Connectology. And so that's what we're seeing on the right is, 600 nodes. I was expecting a little bit more. I probably have to go back and figure out why some nodes are missing. There's also some orphan nodes that are missing connections. So it's not perfect, but that's a bunch of information that we're seeing on the screen. And I'm excited to explore this further. You can imagine that if I talk to the robot about a subject, I might send it a couple of degrees of the network of my mental model. Like, these are the things I also think about in relation to this, and that might inform the robot's responses or help it understand the things that are most interesting or relevant to me. But I just wanted to see a cool graph, I'm going to be honest, and I did it in an hour.